Hey everyone, today I'm making a deck check about my blue-red Throne of Eldraine set deck. You can call it also the Fairy Tale deck or Fairy deck, because as you can see it has a lot of these elements inspired by old fairy tales. And Throne of Eldraine doesn't belong to Standard anymore. It was rotated out last autumn when Innistrad was introduced, but you can still play it in Modern and Historic. The Plane of Eldraine is a high fantasy medieval world filled with knights, castles, along with magic stakes on the genre of fairy tales. The key conflict of Eldraine is the 5 knightly chords versus the magical chords of the wilds, and the status quo is disrupted when the Planeswalker Oko and the Garruk Wildspeaker kidnap the High King Kenrith. And his children, the twins Rowan and Will, embark on a quest to save their father, and in the end the king is saved. Garruk is freed from his curse. And Throne of Eldraine introduces the ability Adamant. Spells with Adamant have additional or alternative effects if you cast the spell with 3 or more mana of one color. Together with the hybrid mana in the set, Adamant encourages monocolor drafting in order of aggressive to controlling. Additionally, there are heavy tribal themes around knights and non-humans. Knights appear in all 5 colors, but they have the most tribal synergy in white, black and red. On the other hand, non-humans, like our deck, are mainly green, blue, red, and there are also artifact and enchantment matters themes. Like one of the most powerful artifacts is for sure Embercleave, where you can just attach it to a creature, give it +1/+1. It has also flash, so when you are just attacking with your creatures, you can just attach it. It will gain double strike and trample, so yeah, one of the most powerful cards. It was so often played in mono red decks. And also the Great Henge is the green card where you can just draw a card whenever you play a green spell. And then you will also get, when you tap the Great Henge, you will just receive 2 life. Yeah, and one of the coolest card types are the adventure cards. A new subtype seen exclusively on instant and sorceries attached to creature cards. Casting the adventure half of the card represents sending the creature on an adventure before putting it onto the battlefield. And when the adventure resolves, the card is exiled. When exiled as part of the resolution, the creature may be cast from exile. And this is such a huge advantage because you have basically 2 cards on 1 card. Yeah, let's take a closer look on the cards in our deck. So the heart and the center of this deck is the Triumvirate Improbable Alliance, Ironcrag Pyromancer and the Royal Science here in the middle. And to win, it's important to have these 3 cards, or at least 2 of them, on the field and try to draw a second card every turn. We can also draw cards during our opponent's turn thanks to Thrill of Possibility, which allows us to trigger the effects of Alliance and Pyromancer. Pyro is always dealing 3 damage to any target, so we can just choose between our opponent, Planeswalker, or even a creature. And Improbable Alliance can sprawl very quickly because we can put a lot of fairy tokens on the field with flying, so it's hard for our opponent to block. Also, we can buff these little pesky creatures with our Planeswalker with +2/+0, and they will gain first strike and trample until end of turn. Or even with our land, here it is, Castle Embereth, so our creatures will get +1/+0. We have in total 11 cards, which let us draw cards. Opt twice, Thrill of Possibility twice, the Royal Science 3 times. Actually, it would be better when we would have a 4th copy, but however I don't have the wild cards, so 3 copies. Then we also have the Merchant of the Veil, So we can use it for the adventure, like we will just discard the card. If we do, we will draw a card. And then when our creature is on the battlefield, we can pay 3 mana. We don't have to tap Merchant of the Veil, we just discard the card and we'll draw a card. Another special feature of this deck is the adventure card type, meaning most of our creature cards have an instant spell built in, like as you have seen, like Hypnotic Sprite, Merchant of the Veil, Bone Crusher Giant, Brazen Borrower. And yeah, of course, being a blue deck, we also have counter spells like Hypnotic Sprite, where we can counter our opponent's spell with mana value 3 or less. And furthermore, we have also here, we have Merchant of Veil, we can just discard and draw a card, and it will always trigger Improbable Alliance or Ironcrag Pyromancer when they are on the battlefield. Then we have also our Bone Crusher Giant, a card that was played up and down in Standard back then, and very cool but also really powerful card, because for 2 mana we deal 2 damage to any target, it can't be prevented, and for 3 mana we get a Mighty Giant with 4/3. Another very popular card is Brazen Borrower, which allows us to slow down our opponent by simply sending one of our opponent's cards back to hand for 2 mana. This way the opponent loses a turn if they actually tap all their mana to play a creature, artifact or an enchantment. And we also get a 3/1 flying fairy, which can block creatures with flying. Then we have Didn't Say Please. 4 times, so we can just neutralize any spell, especially spells with mana value 4 or more, since we have Hypnotic Sprite here. Then we have also Faerie Vandal, and Faerie Vandal always benefits when we draw our second card and gets +1/+1 counter each time, and it also has flash, so we can just also disrupt small creatures, when they are attacking, for example. We come, here is our Planeswalker. With only 3 mana, this one is one of the cheapest, and it fits perfectly into our deck, into our draw deck. It already has 5 loyalty points, and with +1 we draw a card and discard the card. And in most cases it's a land card, if we already have too many land cards on the field. But also the second effect can be really useful if we have a lot of fairy tokens on the battlefield. Then we will just give them +2/+0 and they will gain also trample and first strike. And if we will trigger the last effect, then the game should actually already be decided, because we draw 4 cards and ideally inflict 4 or more damage points on to our opponent, depending on how many cards we have in our hand. So like when you have 6 cards, we'll just deal 6 damage. And we have a total of 25 lands, but only because the shuffler always gives just a few lands. So I just put 25 land cards in our deck. And we have here Castle Embereth, which allows us to make our creatures stronger. And we have also Fabled Passage twice, but of course it would be better to have this card 4 times. However, I have no wild cards left. And also a copy of Castle Ventress would be really useful, where we just pay 4 mana and we can scry for 1. And yeah, you can see the mana curve is very low. We have a lot of cards with 2 or 3 mana, so it's a very fast deck, and we can also play our Planeswalker quickly because it only costs 3 mana. This is a huge advantage of this deck. It's fast, And yeah, this is my red-blue Throne of Eldraine set deck. And if you want to see more of such set decks, you can subscribe to this channel, and yeah, see you next time then. Ciao.